We are helping lighting designers, operators, and professionals around the world create exciting experiences for audiences at live events and installation projects, as well as spectacular TV shows or blockbuster movies. Wherever you work, MA Lighting has the tools to make your job easier. We are helping lighting designers, operators, and professionals around the world create exciting experiences for audiences at live events and installation projects, as well as spectacular TV shows or blockbuster movies. Wherever you work, MA Lighting has the tools to make your job easier. We are helping lighting designers, operators, and professionals around the world create exciting experiences for audiences at live events and installation projects, as well as spectacular TV shows or blockbuster movies. Wherever you work, MA Lighting has the tools to make your job easier.
Hello everyone, good evening. Thank you for joining us today for our fourth edition of our AVnTech4Church webinar. Today's session is unique as it's purely to answer all your questions relating to hybrid and streaming for church purposes. We'd like to thank all those who have sent their questions to us. We have compiled them, and in this session, we will answer those questions. Before we carry on, I'd like to inform you, obviously you're aware of this, that your audio and video is disabled. You will also notice that we have a Q&A function, and this is for you to write the questions to the panelists. We will answer these questions only at the end of the session. We will also have 2 games during the session with interesting giveaways. So do pay attention to that, and you can participate in those through the poll function. This will not be possible, of course, without our sponsors. So we'd like to thank Analog Way, Bose Professional, and MA Lighting for sponsoring this session. All right, so let's get on with my introduction. My pleasure to introduce really the panelists. Most of us already know Robert Su, who is the founder and principal consultant at Cogent Acoustics. He did do the first 2 presentations for us. Then we have Stephen Yeo, who is a technical director of Hope Church Singapore, who had also done the last presentation for us. I would like to now introduce Michael Dakota, lead technical support engineer at APAC Analog Way, and is joining us from France. Michael, maybe you could just introduce a little bit about yourself.
Yes, hello everybody. Just a few words about me. I work for now 12 years in Analog Way. I started to be engineers for technical support in France, and then I turned to sales for Western countries in Europe. And since 1 year, I do pre-sales and support for the Asian market.
Thank you very much, Michael. There's another familiar figure here, which most of us in Southeast Asia will be aware of. It's Christian Lebenberg, who's a sales manager, Southeast Asia, and ANZ for Bose Professional. Christian, maybe a few words from you.
Thank you, Thomas. Really a pleasure to be here with all the distinguished delegates from around the Asian market. As you know, we've been very present in Southeast Asia and across Asia for a number of years. It's really an opportunity for us to engage our customers and hear a little bit more from the marketplace. So really a pleasure to be here with everybody today. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, Christian. Sorry, I jumped in there. I'd also like to introduce Daniel Kannenberg, who's brand manager at MA Lighting, and he's joining us from Germany. Daniel, a few words, please.
Yeah, hello everybody. Very happy to be here for this AVnTech4Church question and answer session. Thank you for inviting us. Of course, you know, MA Lighting is very present in the concert touring market, in the theater, in the film, TV market. But of course, we are going more and more into the direction of house of worships, all the different churches, and therefore we are very happy to be here to especially learn from you what your requirements are, what you need, and what we can do for you. So thank you very much for inviting us here.
Thank you, Daniel. All right, so we are going to get to it. And the first question really is for Robert Su. Robert, let me ask you this. The question starts with, even when we have already set the gain level on mixer, USB audio interface, and even OBS until it shows green, sometimes people are still complaining they can't really hear the sound. If you set the level too high, it would get distorted, right? That was the question mark. And how do you make the levels that are streamed are not too soft or not too loud? Robert, all yours.
All right, thank you, Thomas. That's a really good question. Which I think many houses of worship, when it first started out, had this similar problem. In fact, up to now, some are still struggling with dealing with level issues. People are complaining that it's too soft most of the time at home. So maybe let me just start off by saying that, to provide a good stream to the congregation at home, there are two main things that you need to achieve. Of course, a good audio mix, and especially for the worship segment. And of course, a strong, clean audio signal, right, throughout the signal chain. Well, I can't really talk about the audio mix segment in tonight's session, but I'm happy to announce that there's a session plan, probably in a coming month or two, where I'll be conducting a webinar session on streaming mix. And there'll be a demonstration included, so do look out for that. If all planets aligned, probably we might do it next month, hopefully. So do look out for that. Now, on the second point about how to get a good signal across, there are two things we need to do, right? One is to maximize audio signal levels to achieve a good signal to noise ratio. I think that is something that we talked about all the time, whether we are doing live sound or we're doing a broadcast sound. And when maximizing levels, we must be very, very careful to ensure that the signal does not clip to avoid distortion. I think that's one of the questions that you have. How do we get it up without getting it distorted? So if you refer to one of my previous slides, I'm not sure how many of you attended my, I think it was second session, where I talked about getting a good gain structure in the whole system. Let me just try to share this a little bit. If I can show it to you, give me a second here. All right, let me share this. All right, Thomas, you're seeing my screen, hopefully. Okay.
Yes.
So if you can see my screen, right, this was one of the slides that I shared in my second webinar session, where I talked about setting proper levels. Now, most of the time we start with proper levels at the mixer, input stage. But I go one step before that. Even the input devices, your wireless mics, your instruments and everything, your levels has to be up, right? Most of the time you start to crank up your gain to ridiculous levels because your bass guitarist just gave you almost nothing out of the instrument. So, and then you got to crank it up. So that's the first thing you need to take note of. And then after that, of course, you go to, let me see now if I can go there, to the mixer. And then you, have to set proper levels for each of the input channels. And of course, we talked about how you set gain and how to set levels and so forth. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more about in my coming webinar session. And then we also have to deal with all the other peripherals down the signal chain, right? We've got to set the input gain, the output levels, and so forth, even the amplifiers. All the levels are, any USB interface, you have to set the levels properly, and so forth. Now, what you notice that along this whole signal chain and all the equipment that are connected together, there are instruments that allow you to monitor what the signal levels are. And usually they come in the form of either LED indicators or digital meters. It allows you to see how strong or how weak the signals are, and whether they are too low or whether they're so high that they clip, all right? And things like this, you see, like if those of you who operate an OBS, you see meters like this. Now, one of the things that, we have to understand about setting such signal levels is that, like you mentioned in your question, you brought it up to where it hits green, all right? And you think that is good enough. But I'm not sure when you say green, what kind of metering and what kind of references that you're making to. So for example, if you're talking about, let's say your mixer input channel, and every channel has got 2 or 3 LED indicators that shows you green and yellow and red and things like that. Does that mean that you crank up your gain to the point where you just start to see green and then say that's good enough? Typically, in my practice, that's not good enough, right? You got to crank it up. And typically you will crank it up to the point where, it's just, you're just about to hit the roof, hit the clipping point. You got to back it off a little bit. So you got to get strong signal. So don't just stop at seeing green and that's it. So if you look at different kind of metering, right, whether you're talking about peak program meter or you're talking about a dB full scale or DBFS, right, there are different ways of looking at it. So if you look at this various different types of metering, right, you kind of get confused as to how do I set levels. So with simple LED indicators, I mentioned that you should crank it up, all right? Don't be afraid, bring it up until you almost hit clipping, so just back it off a little bit and you're strong enough. Don't just leave it at green. And if you're talking about things like those like the one you see in OBS or on some mixers, where you see the zero at the end of the meter. Now that's actually the digital zero. Now, of course, that's the point where you want to avoid, all right? Don't push your levels up to the point where you keep seeing red flashing, and that's terrible. But then where do you put it? If you look at this OBS meter, all right, you have the green segment, the yellow, and the red, all right? Feel free to push it up as much as you can, all right, to the point where, it's loud enough, but do not just stop at the green segment. If you need more, just go ahead, go to the yellow. It is fine. It is fine. Just keep pushing up, but make sure you don't clip the levels. Okay? And then some people get confused. How does this translate to some other metering like those you see on a mixer where the zero is not at the end, right? You typically see a what we call a peak program meter or peak program monitor, where you see minus 40 up to 0, and then you got plus 3, plus 6, plus 12, plus 18. Now, that kind of metering is very different from what you see here on OBS. And when you see that kind of metering, just remember that 0 is different from this 0. All right, the 0 on that mixer meter is probably about 18 dB lower, right, below this 0 point on your OBS. So again, quite confusing, but on your mixer, feel free to push it up, right? Don't be afraid, don't go below the 0 mark and say that if I cross it, because that's what some people think, they cross the 0 and it says that's the danger zone. It's actually not true, right? You actually have to go a little bit higher, right? Feel free to go plus 3, plus 6, and sometimes if you're daring, you can even go up to plus 12. Just remember to monitor it, make sure that it doesn't go to the red zone, often, otherwise it will clip and you will distort. So that's the danger zone, right? So when you do your levels on all your, on a mixer, on your USB interface, just push it up. Don't be afraid. Otherwise, your levels, when it gets transmitted out, it's going to be so soft for your congregation at home. And that's the reason why they keep complaining it's too soft, it's too soft, right? So now there are two critical points to take note here, right? Now, this approach does not specifically determine how loud it is for your home viewers, right? But when you do it this way, you will ensure that they will get the strongest signal ever you can provide them without distortion. How loud it is depends on their devices at home, right? They could be listening to headphones, they could be listening on the television sets, and so forth. Now, it's up to them to adjust the volume. So give them the strongest signal you can give them without distortion, and let them deal with the volume at home. Okay? So your job is give them all you got without distortion, and they should be happy. All right. Now, another thing to take note of is this. I keep saying do not hit the red zone. Very often in your mix, whether it's on your mixer or on your interfaces or on your OBS or your encoders, when you see the metering go all the way to red, sometimes it's not the average signal, that's just the peaks. And if you're doing live mix or you're doing a broadcast mix, you see a lot of your channels hitting the red and so forth. Now, those are the peaks, like for example, your drummer is hitting the snare real hard and the peaks are hitting the red zone. Now, if you can find a way to compress the levels down, so you need to find a way to implement compression, right, in your mix and your downstream as well. Now, that way you can kind of bring down your peaks and increase your average output level. And then you have a much higher, so to speak, volume for your home listeners, right? Now, tonight I don't have time to talk about compression. In the following segment, I'm going to cover that with some demonstration. So I hope that you can sign up for that so that I can kind of share a little bit more about how do you compress your inputs, your outputs, and so forth. That will give you a much better signal for your home viewers. All right, so I hope that answers that question. Thomas?
Yeah, thank you, Robert. That was pretty detailed, and I hope whoever had asked a question got at least some information out of this, right?
Yeah.
Great. We'll come back about the session that we're going to do in the later part of this session. Yeah. All right. Let me go on to a second question, and this is actually, I think, Michael from Analog Way, I think it would be best for you to answer this question. So let me ask the question first. In our church setup, we have video sources such as computers and cameras, plus display device projectors and TVs, all having different output resolutions like HD, 4K, some even VGA, and even displays with different aspect ratios. It was already a nightmare managing them for our live services to look right on all the displays. And now, with hybrid worship requirements, we also need to deal with remote viewing devices, as well as deal with slow internet and bandwidth issues that we sometimes have to scale down to even lower video resolutions. How do we deal with all these such that the video looks right to both the congregation in church and to those at home? Michael, that was a pretty long question.
That's a good question. But yes, obviously the needs evolve. So you have more and more inputs, more and more outputs to handle. And like you said, the resolutions can be different. You can have a 4K, HD, or even lower sometimes. In addition to that, you have different devices with sometimes different refresh rate. 60 Hertz, usually for the computer, 50 sometimes in Europe, for example, for cameras. And for streaming, sometimes you reach 30 Hertz. So obviously you need to handle everything at the same time. In addition to that, you sometimes have LED screens on site with HDR, for example. So even the color space needs to be handled by something. So you have different solutions. You have software solution and hardware solution. The software solution can do the job depending on the numbers of input and output. But you can easily reach the limits of it, because as soon as you talk about 4K, HDR, 60 Hertz, you reach the capacity of the computer. So in that way, you need some hardware device. So our goal is to take all those signals and do whatever you want on the output with specific input dedicated to specific usage. So one of the things the hardware can offer is a monitoring, for example. You have a live monitoring of all your outputs in real time. So you can check if there is any issue somewhere. The other thing is the preset management. Instead of doing everything in live, and it's a source of errors, you can pre-program all your presets and just recall preset 1, 2, 3, and have the good configuration. So yeah, for me, the answer to this question is having an hardware that is powerful enough to handle all the resolution.
Be it at home or in the church, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you are in the church, then you can stream anywhere in the world with the right resolution, the right rate, and you can have an overview of your full scene.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for that. The next question is for Stephen. Stephen, the question is, can you share with us the minimum specification for streaming without breaking the 5 tenets of the church?
All right. Okay, let me just share my screen. Let's see here. Okay, so the simplest way to get your video is just by one camera. That means the condition, the limitation is the cost, right? So we try to keep the cost low, and yet it is still a decent quality, right? Because the lowest is just use your handphone and capture, but that may not be workable for the rest of the audience, right? It's due to that your phone cannot control the parameters very well. The brightness, the color. So the camera has to be of a little bit better quality. So one way is that in this diagram, right, you see that the video camera is like the next up, okay? Then you need to get audio in. So if it's just the built-in camera's mic and picking up the surrounding sound, right, it will be noisier and not intelligible, not good. So you need to take a signal from the mixer, the audio mixer. Now this technique would be covered in detail by Robert's courses, right, on audio mixers. So namely would be the auxiliary out. It can be analog or digital mixer, right? Just look for auxiliary outs or group outs or tape out or main out. Some of this probably is already used by your existing sound system on stage or the main. And so whatever remaining at minimally one channel of this out can be piped in. And then your camera itself, right, would have a volume control usually to control the incoming volume. So then you can use the camera to adjust the volume until it doesn't clip. So you balance your mixer output to your camera. And then the camera now will carry the video as well as the sound. Usually at this stage, right, the audio should be synchronized. The time delay should not be too significant. Okay, so then the audio and the video will pass through your HDMI cable, assuming your HDMI will go out through to this live streaming recording encoder. Now, this is the simplest way. It's just a small little box, probably as big as your handphone. And HDMI will go in. Then the other end will be your network connection, LAN cable that goes to your router and to your internet. You pre-program this box with all the IP addresses and so on. And then when it's all ready, you just press one button and then it will start your stream to your designated places that you have already pre-programmed. All right, so it can go to Facebook, for example. And so with that one click button, you can start streaming and possibly record into that box as well, that little box example. Okay, so there is no cost in computer. Okay, of course, there's another solution in my previous webinar that there is the PCI card and then or the USB capture card, then you need a computer software to capture it. So you have to pay for computer and the software as well. Or the free software is like OBS. OBS Studio would be one of the options for free software. There was a question asked. There's other software around as well. Now, this solution, this little box, right, will just do the streaming. There's limitation. You may not be able to control too much setting, but it is dedicated. At least if it works from the beginning, your parameter is set correctly, your resolution, your bit rate, then it will continue to work well throughout. It is not affected by your OS, Windows operating system changes and so on. So it's just doing one job and it will do it well. So less headache, just one button, it will send out your signal. Okay, so audio from your mixer, room one, don't take the microphone. Number two, get it mixed into your camera. And so the cameraman can plug in the headphones to listen and then adjust the volume. You usually will see a meter so that it doesn't distort over there. And then from there, your HDMI audio video will be all together going in. So there is no audio interface required. So you cut down a few $100. And then you just have to have this combination. I feel this is probably the lowest end and it's stable. Now, this is not able to grow much because your camera is only one. So if you need to pump in lyrics, graphics, that will be a problem. Okay, but it's a low cost. Okay, so if you want to start adding second graphics, like lowered lyrics and so on, then you need a mixer, which in my previous webinar I had talked about. So in this Q&A, I think the question is how to do it without breaking your bank, right? So this probably I think is the next up, better than your small USB webcam and just turn your laptop around and shooting the whole stage, right? So I think this will be next. I hope it answers your question. Yeah.
Thanks, Stephen. Yes, so it's a very simple setup, but it will get you going at least in a proper way, rather than what you said about a webcam and so forth. So hope that Stephen's answer helps the church that had sent in that question. All right, let's go to our fourth question, and this is actually to the attention of Christian from both. Christian, it's a long question, so bear with me. And actually, this is not even a question in relation to a sanctuary, but still, I think it'd be interesting for you to answer. So here goes the question, or rather a statement first. We could really use some help on interactive calls infrastructure at our church. Currently, we are only allowing 50% of the kids to attend Sunday school, while the rest access through Zoom. We would love for them, that is the kids at home and the kids at church, to be able to interact with the teachers and each other. The system that we set up at the moment have caused sound looping, as we expected. And all that we can do is just to minimize the feedback by constantly adjusting the volume. We were wondering if you guys have a suggestion as to allow us to have better interactive calls using Zoom without the looping and feedback issues. Christian, all yours.
Thank you so much. I think some of the challenges that you're facing are very common to most users who have maybe a simple setup or sometimes even a complex setup. So let's go through some steps here. In order to solve this problem effectively, we would obviously need to know a little bit more about the particular site in question, the products that are installed there, as well as the overall configuration and setup. Without this information, there are quite a number of factors which could be considered. But the single easiest way to reduce feedback is to move the microphone closer to the desired sound source, obviously the speakers, the person, not the loudspeakers, the people who are talking. And if possible, shield the microphone from the direct field of playback from the loudspeakers installed in that space. In addition, you may want to keep the microphones and loudspeakers as far away from each other as possible. You can also look at directional microphones, such as cardioid or supercardioid type of microphones. And you can also improve the gain before feedback wherever possible, but this is not always available in all circumstances. Okay. For simple speech systems, trying to keep the number of open microphones to a minimum by using an automatic mixer will improve gain before feedback. Do not use an automatic mixer. This is more for music applications. In addition to this, maybe some acoustic treatment in the room to eliminate hard reflective surfaces such as glass, marble, and wood can also help. These are obviously highly resonant rooms, so some treatment there could help with some absorption of those sound waves. Some additional points to consider: if you have a more complex system already installed, maybe just again look at the microphones that have been chosen for that specific space. If there's an external DSP and maybe the type of loudspeakers, maybe they're sort of very wide dispersion angle loudspeakers, so maybe you can try to narrow those down a little bit. Of course, even if we sort of narrow down the focus just to these basic three elements, there's still quite a lot of content to cover. So firstly, let's look at the DSP, if there is one installed there, and check if the unit has the following features available: noise reduction, acoustic echo cancellation, AEC, automatic gain control, or even system equalization. If you don't have a very complex system and potentially you're just looking at a very simple standalone microphone and a loudspeaker system, maybe some portable loudspeakers is often the case these days, when there's a spillover room, there's often no DSP in there. So you really don't have those kind of luxuries that we were mentioning earlier. It's a very basic system. So in these cases, again, we can just start by checking the position of the microphones relative to the loudspeakers. We do see, obviously, that portable loudspeakers are designed to cover a very large area, and by definition, of course, have a very wide dispersion angle, and typically have a lot of low end as well. So this could be playing through. If the microphones are directly in the path of the loudspeakers, this will definitely be causing some feedback or looping in the call. And obviously they are in the direct field, so we need to just move those again, as mentioned before. So moving on, of course, if we look at some of the ways to just check this, if you have a bunch of these settings enabled and you've gone through the microphones and you've checked the types, one of the easiest ways to check if you're getting any feedback is just try blowing into the microphone with your volume set to high. If you hear some garbled audio coming back out of the loudspeakers, your microphone may have some playback issues, or there might be some gain settings which need to be adjusted, of course, over there. Then, of course, the next thing to look at is maybe your settings on your Zoom call. There's help with audio feedback issues. If you go to the Zoom pages, there's a lot of troubleshooting help over there, which is very, very easy to follow. There's basic steps, there's videos, and it's user-based. So these are really intuitive and very, very helpful. All right. So then lastly, of course, so one of the options to look at is maybe looking at a video bar type of system where you have an all-in-one microphone, video, camera built in there, as well as loudspeakers. These all operate in sync with one another in the room, and this should, again, unless the room is really acoustically challenging, this should be a good solution for you to fix those challenges that you may be experiencing there. In summary, if you're still facing a little bit of an issue, call one of my team or one of our trained partners to come out to site, have a look, and maybe give you a hand. For most of the countries across Southeast Asia, we have authorized distribution partners who do have qualified engineers that are willing to come out to site and give a helping hand. There's no charge for that. So please, look into that if you're really struggling. We are there to help you with that.
Thank you so much, Christian. That was pretty detailed as well. And you're right. I mean, with the question, we're not too sure about how the space looks and what are the challenges, but I think you're giving us a broad aspect of what to look out for. All right, let's move on. And we have a lighting question. So Daniel, this is for you. The question is, which option would be better for a lighting console? A software PC-based lighting console or hardware-based light console? Please also let us know the reasons for the choice. Yeah. Daniel, all yours.
Yeah, so this is, at the end, this is a great question because this is a question all the users have in mind when they are looking for a lighting control system. And of course, this is a question we have to answer a lot as well. And to be honest, it's not that easy to answer. Therefore, yeah, I will need my 5 minutes. No, it's not that easy to answer because it really depends on the purpose. It depends on how many lights you want to control. It surely depends on if you want to have some backup scenarios, some backup systems. So there are some factors we should have a look at. So first of all, maybe when we have a look at on-PC solutions, on-PC software, of course, one of the advantages is that you can have some very smart, clever, and especially space-saving solutions. So you have some small and compact devices which you can use to control this on-PC software. You have a really small system. So in general, you can start with your laptop and a small node, or some manufacturers have small dongles to start with parameter fixture controlling. And of course, yeah, the other advantage is that these systems are, of course, very easy to set up. So you have some small devices. You have a good overview of your system. You can just download a software and you can immediately start programming. That's what these on-PC, these on-PC systems compare or have all in mind together. On the other hand, yeah, we want to ask ourselves, yeah, why we need then bigger consoles. So we have control solutions for on-PC software, and we can control some lights, of course. But on the other hand, when we go a little bit further, when we have some more complex systems, some more fixtures to control, of course, the overview in an on-PC system is not the same as you have on a bigger console, on a bigger lighting desk, for example. So when you control more fixtures, then you might want to have some more playback options, some more screens, some more control interface to control your fixtures. Of course, one of the things which is not true for an on-PC system, when we have a lighting desk, then the system itself has its own operating system. So normally the lighting consoles have their own operating system, and of course the own operating system can always decide how to use the resources to calculate DMX, to calculate maybe visualization, and so on and so forth. With an on-PC software, of course, the system relies on the operating system you use. Might it be Windows or Mac or whatever? So the system or the operating system in the background decides about the system resources. Sometimes, especially when you have bigger shows and more parameters to control, this can, of course, make some problems or not. It depends. And at the end, of course, we have also to think about, do we need a backup? Are we able to combine these on-PC solutions maybe with a bigger console? Can we just scale our system? So these are some things, especially you should keep in mind when you choose a system, when you choose a lighting control system. Is it easily to scale? Can you expand the system if needed, or can you just add a lighting console when you need it for a bigger live event? So normally you might run your system on an on-PC solution, and then for a bigger event you just add a lighting console or something. So just the easiness to combine the different devices, that's definitely a point. And that's also the reason at the end why we are working with our distribution partners together on all the different areas in the world, because it is very much depending on your venue, on your installation, on your church, the size, the amount of fixtures you have. But therefore, we are really happy to help you with our distributors, definitely to have a look at your system and give you some advice, give you some answers to your questions.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Great. We are going to take a short break in a way, not from the Q&A, and this is our first game that we are going to go into. So for all of you who are online, we have a question to be asked. It's a game, and it's actually from MA Lighting, and you may win some merchandising vouchers from them. So you may notice a poll function in your system. So you just got to click on it and choose one of the answers. All right. So the question is, how much does a Grand MA3 on PC software cost? The first option is it is only available on the consoles, so you have to buy a console. Second, it is US 200 per year. The third is it is to download for free and you can start programming immediately. And finally, for some things money can't buy, for Grand MA3 software, here's a MasterCard. All right, so we are going to give you a few seconds. Please use this opportunity to answer, and you may walk away with a merchandising voucher. So let me give you a countdown, right? So it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're closing the polls. So Daniel, what is the answer? Do we need a MasterCard?
Yeah, I mean, at the end, answer number 4 is, of course, always correct. And I know this from my 2 little boys at home. So there's for everything, there is MasterCard. But at the end, of course, the true answer is number 3. It is downloadable for free.
Fantastic. I'm not sure how many of you knew this, but if you did not, well, here's a interesting way for you to download something and, check out the lighting software, so to say. All right. Thank you, Daniel. Okay, I would also like to inform that you can use the Q&A and ask us the questions, and we will get to those questions at the end of this segment. And we'll do our best to answer as many as possible. So feel free to use the Q&A. We're already seeing questions coming in, and we will get to them later. Thank you. All right, let's go to the next question. This is a pretty short question, and this is for Stephen. Stephen, for long distance, instead of HDMI extender, would you recommend active optical cable? Yours, Stephen. Stephen, you need to switch on your mic, sorry.
I say, sorry, my bad. The active optical cable, there is like 30 meters or 100 meters kind. So for example, in this page, right, it has stuff that goes up to even 4K and 100 meters. The advantage is that it reduces electromagnetic interference or radio frequency interference. So therefore, much better. The gold-plated connectors and so on. Now, the downside is that it is costly. So, for example, a 30-meter cable can cost you 500 Sing dollars. I just estimate only lah. Okay, you can just Google for it online and you get estimate. For a 100-meter cable, it can go up to $1,000, just the cable alone, right? So in a way, it is the technology works is that they have a little on the connector itself. It takes the power from the HDMI and then converts into an optical signal. And so the whole cable line is actually very thin. It's just a fiber optic cable. And then the other end, it will have another converter that receives it and converts back to HDMI cable. It's all built, all miniaturized. This two cable has a input and output port. You cannot swap them around. Meaning there is a term they call sending. The other one will be called receiving. And so the sending must be used as a sending, and then the receiving must go to your display. You cannot turn it the other way around. It won't work. Okay, so that's the caveat. Once you've laid the cable in your venue, it's kind of like fixed one direction. All right. Whereas the old copper cable, you can just change the converter around. So my recommendation would be for cost savings, right? I would not go this way. We will convert it to, let's say, SDI, and you can run 100 meters of SDI cable and then convert back to HDMI on the other end. And it is it's more robust. The SDI cable is more robust for daily use. And the total cost is way lower than the wire itself. So it's a cost item for getting an optical cable for that kind of distance. Yeah. So yes, you can do it, but not economical at this point of time now, unless in the years to come, the price may drop. Thanks.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for that. All right, let's get on to the next question, and something to do with Zoom as well. And this is for Michael. With the COVID-19 restrictions, we can't hold large church conferences with a few hundred participants at least, with breakout workshops that we used to, of course. We are thinking of using Zoom to manage the sessions, but it gets rather complicated and messy when managing different presenters from various locations. Is there a good way to handle this rather than just rely on Zoom controls? Michael?
Yeah, so that's a difficult question. And for me, there's two questions into this one. The first thing is the ergonomy. You're right, it's complicated to deal with a lot of inputs and a lot of outputs at the same time. So the first solution is the software, like Zoom software, but we are quickly full. I mean, you cannot do your own positioning of windows. So the good solution here is to use another hardware to make the preset, like I said at the first question. All right, like this, you can define the position you want for every Windows. And it's easy to recall because you are already done your preset. You do 20 presets and you recall one by one. Okay, so that's in terms of ergonomy. Of course, it's a matter of price. Okay, you can use the software, but if you want more ergonomy, you need to go on hardware part. The second question for me into that is the quality, because when you receive a Zoom stream, you have the mosaic, or you have one people talking full screen, but you cannot have all the speakers in high quality, because all the streams are handled by the server itself. You just receive these streams. So what I can say is, in big event, important event like politics or things like this, what are they doing? It's very simple. They use one computer for one speaker. Okay, so it's a point-to-point communication. If there are 15 speakers, there are 15 computers receiving 15 streams. And all of those are mixed into an hardware powerful enough to make the mix. So it's a big installation. Of course, it will depend of the money you have, but if you want ergonomy, you need to pay for it. You cannot use just the simple software provided by the free application.
Thanks, Michael. Thank you. Right. So yeah, it really depends on what you're looking for and whether you have the budget for it, right?
Yeah.
All right. Now here we have an audio question. So Robert, this is yours. What are some troubleshooting tips when live streaming audio doesn't sound right compared to FOH, front of house mix? How to differentiate whether the root cause is streaming service issue or in-house mixing issue? That's a loaded question, Robert.
Yeah, another very good question. If you recall in my first webinar session, I've already established all the main reasons why simply taking a main front of house live mix output and sending it to stream will usually not sound right to the people at home in terms of mix balance, overall tone, dynamics, and so forth. And this is probably due to direct sound interference from stage instruments, stage monitors, acoustic instruments, room acoustics, and so forth, as well as the fact that the sound produced by the front of house speakers are usually not representative of the listening devices that people are using at home, right? Whether they are listening on their mobile phones or the laptops and so forth. So, and the way to fix this is to have a separate mix. All right, from the front of house, either from the front of house mixer, or better yet, a completely independent broadcast mix for the stream. So that is ideal, right? So to answer this question, I'm going to assume that there's a separate mix that's already been set up, and still there are issues with the sound, right? The root cause could be more than just the beginning and the end of the signals chain. Often the audio has to go through many stages, sometimes too many stages, in fact, before it finally reaches the person at home. And each of these stages can significantly alter the audio quality in changing its frequency response, in the phase, the dynamic range, and etc. And especially some of these not so high quality ADDA converters can also degrade audio significantly, right? So the more things you have in between, the more the audio might change, right? Another thing to take note of is that this is what I noticed. There are some mix and lower range models of certain video equipment, like for example, like video recorders, switches and converters, transmitter receivers, which may not be as good in managing audio. All right. Okay, Michael, don't worry. I'm not making reference to analog way here. So you're happy to hear that. So, but there are some video equipment that I've encountered. They are not very, very good. So a lot of users, operators in church, they route the audio through multiple video equipment before it actually gets streamed out. And sometimes the audio gets degraded in some ways, right? And sometimes you may even encounter noise being added to the stream, right? Whether it's hum or buzz, and then this is what people hear at home. So if you have such audio-related issues with your video equipment, then I'll recommend that the audio signal gets routed straight from the audio mixer to the streaming encoder without anything in between. That's the best way. That usually I'll advise that. And for troubleshooting reasons, this is also better in the sense that it will cut down on potential areas of failure. Okay. For example, I was recently talking to a church that shared that their audio routes through a video switcher and then to a video recorder and then gets to the OBS system. And then they said somehow the audio doesn't sound right. And we discovered that it was the video recorder. When the audio routes through it and then it comes out, it just gets downgraded. You know, the dynamic range is decreased, the frequency response gets rolled off at the highs and so forth. And things like that do happen. And so in cases like this, I would advise that you just route it straight from the mixer, audio mixer, straight to your encoder somewhere, okay? And this ensures that you get the best audio signal for your remote listeners. Now, then how do we know if there's an issue with the audio stream where the problem lies? Now, the first thing that I will advise is that for any church that is doing live streaming, when you are doing the live streaming at the time, you should have some sort of monitoring device, whether you have a laptop or your mobile phone logged in to the stream, and you can monitor how it sounds. And not just trust that whatever gets out of your audio mixer is exactly what's going to be received by the people at home. So check that, and if you hear there's something different in the downstream, then try to figure out what's wrong and where it went wrong. Okay. Now, of course, if it doesn't sound right directly out of your audio mixer, then that's where you start, right? Fixing the mix first. But let's say your audio mix is fine, you monitor it, and it sounds great, but somehow it just gets worse down the line. Then you can try to check and monitor each of the device in between, the signal chain. If your device has got the headphone output, you can plug it in and listen to it. Like for example, if you're routing it through a video switcher or a video mixer, and then you can plug in, if it's got a headphone output, you can actually monitor the audio from there. Or if it's going through a USB interface, you can check it first at that stage and see if it's okay. Now, if everything sounds all right, but at the end of the day, people at home are just saying that, hey, it sounds really weird or it just doesn't sound good, then it could be that the streaming platform did something to it. It could be some form of over compression, or that kind of downgraded it because there's some bandwidth issue, or the software just doesn't allow a full bandwidth to be transmitted. It could be all kinds of reasons. Like recently, I was just also dealing with one church where they said that they stream to Facebook Live. And what I realized about Facebook Live, I think there was some time back, is that they don't handle stereo audio. It's in mono, I think. I'm not sure if they changed it because I've not used it for a long time. And if it's in mono. So imagine you do your audio mix really nicely, with good stereo imaging, with effects and channel panning and so forth. It all gets lost when you put it down into mono on Facebook Live. So it will never be, it will never sound as good as your original source. So that could be another reason why downstream it sounds different. So one word advice is that if you're going to be streaming onto a mono streaming platform, then your original mix should be done in mono, right? So that what you stream out will be similar to what people at home will get, all right? So that could be another advice that I can give to people who are doing streaming. So I hope that this kind of helped to answer the question.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you very much. All right, let's get on to the next question. It's actually regarding lighting. So Daniel, this one is for you. Okay, here goes the sentence really. Our church previously relied fully on fluorescent lighting for both the stage and the congregation area. But now with hybrid worship and a need to video and stream the services, we had to beef up our lighting for the stage and started adding some lamp type and LED type stage lights. Since then, we can't seem to get our video image color looking consistent. when panning between different parts of the stage, and especially when shooting the congregation. How can we get this right? Daniel?
Yeah, as you can imagine, the answer will be a little bit longer than the question itself. Yeah, in general, this is a nice question because it points at a specific development in these times. So, what is the problem normally when we have a look at this? Of course, we have different fixture types. We have different lights with different color mixes, like RGB lights. We have some lights with RGBW, RGBAW, and some 7 or 9 or 13 LED color mixing fixtures. And then we have some media servers, and of course the problem is that we have to match all of these colors, that we build our red, green, blue presets, that all of these colors look the same. And of course, this is a lot of work to do when you have to do it manually. And the industry, of course, has to deal with this bigger problem that we call complexity of fixtures, and especially complexity when we talk about color control. One thing, and this is a nice, as I said, a nice development in the past couple of months, is that now the industry starts to describe these fixture types, or in general device types, in a unique and a common way. So there is a standard now which describes fixture types, which is called GDTF. So GDTF for General Device Type Format. And this general device type format is a great thing because it really describes the fixture starting from their geometry, also including some physical descriptions like the color emitters, for example. And this information directly comes from the fixtures or media server or all of these manufacturers. And then at the end, all different platforms like lighting console manufacturers, like visualization softwares, all of these planning tools, for example, they can use this description, they can use this data format, this GDTF file, to use it on their platforms as well. So the first advantage is that all of these different platforms now can work with one description, with one fixture type. So the fixture and the device in general is always described in the same way. And the other advantage, and this refers back to our question and to our issue here, is that all the different fixtures are described in a way that you can really use a real physical color value. So that means when you have some different fixtures, some different fixture types to control, you can easily use these physical descriptions of the color emitters to match the color exactly. So you work with a physical color, like you all know the CIE color system. CIE color system describes a color with a position in X and Y value together with a brightness parameter. This really physically describes the visible color. And due to the fact that the GDTF, so the standard of these fixture types, describes the fixture as it is in the real world, so as a real world fixture, we can use these physical values directly to refer to exactly the same red. That means we create a red preset with 5, 6, 7 different fixture types, and the red will be exactly the same for an RGB fixture compared to an RGBW or RGBAW fixture. So this is one development in this direction to deal with the complexity of fixtures. In general, when you do this manually, it is of course a lot of work, and there is no other thing than adjusting the color, matching them, storing your presets, and work with them afterwards. But now with the ability to describe a fixture type, so a GDTF in a unique and a common way, we will have some more fun with it in the near future as well, definitely.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for that.
You're welcome.
If you are wondering what's GDTF and you want more information, I'm sure you can Google that and you'll get more details. Or you can get in touch with ME Lighting, and I'm sure they will help you out. All right. So we have a question now for Christian. In a hybrid worship setting, we learned that if we do not have the luxury of a separate broadcast monitor mix setup for streaming, but have to rely on just the front of house loudspeakers doubling up for both live sound mix and broadcast mix, we will need to tune the FOH loudspeakers to sound more like broadcast studio monitors. How do we do that? And then in brackets, there's a comment that says, I know it can't exactly sound like studio monitors, but at least as close as possible. Christian?
Thank you. So I think Robert already explained about having a dedicated signal for live and one for broadcast mix, right? So this kind of follows the same thought train, and in basic terms, we obviously do not recommend the use of front of house system to tune for live and broadcast mix. From our perspective, it's not a good practice, and it's not gonna work well. If however the intention of the user is to tune the front of house system to get a similar mix during broadcast, the suggestion would really be to try and operate an independent mix, such as an auxiliary mix for the broadcast alone. Monitoring of the broadcast mix can be done using a set of headphones or powered studio monitor, loudspeakers, etc. And it will allow for independent mixing separate from the live mix. I know there's maybe some cost issues and things like that, but I'll get to some potential solutions a little bit later, so that we can talk about cost-effective options here. And I think as Robert has quite in detail mentioned already, in all instances the front of house mix would be completely different to the broadcast mix, because they will be delivered through different mechanisms, right? So this needs to be considered. When considering a broadcast mix, it may be compressed during transmission. This would need to be compensated for, for the far side, or for the listeners, and obviously they would like to have the same audio experience as those in the live listening session. So obviously we need some talented people to make sure that does happen. But again, separate signal paths, they need to be considered. As we sort of alluded to in the beginning, we don't have to have the most expensive studio monitors out there. We can get away with a decent powered loudspeaker, something portable loudspeaker, not too heavy if you're looking for a sort of a stereo imaging effect, without using headphones. But again, also headphones would work. And of course, we just need to remember that if we are doing some kind of live listening, there may be a need to tune or EQ the signal so that it's completely flat, because sometimes the loudspeakers might be a little bit biased, right? Because they're not designed to operate flat. They obviously have their own sort of tonal balance and things like that, depending on the manufacturer, depending on many things, in the loudspeaker itself. So in closing, and to sort of begin where to end where we began, we definitely don't recommend using front of house loudspeakers to act or behave like a broadcast studio monitor. Rather have a separate system, and work from there. It's not that expensive, but it will really save you a lot in the end.
Thank you so much, Christian. Thank you. We have actually come to a session. We have sort of answered all the compiled questions, and we'll be getting on to the live questions soon. But before we do that, another chance for you to win something fabulous. This is from Bose. It's a S1 Pro portable speaker that you can win. We're going to run another poll, and you should be able to see it. Go to your poll function, click on it, and choose the correct option. All right. So, which of the below products are part of the Bose portable PA portfolio, which is designed for churches' need of modular expansion? So you have 4 options here. Is the L1 Pro 16, the S1 Pro, Bose F1 model 812, all of the above. So I'm going to do a countdown before we close the poll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All right, Christian, so what was the answer?
I hope I get this right. It's all of the above.
I hope you get it right too. All right, so what will happen is that all those who have answered correctly for the earlier game question and for this latest one, they will all go into a lucky draw, which will be done by the respective brands, which is Emmy Lighting and Bose, and then they will inform you if you have won, right? So that's great. So something to look forward to. We are now going to go into the live session, and I'm going to ask Robert Sue to join me in this. We are going to pick up some of the questions. Robert is going to help me to moderate this in a way, and we will try our best to answer as many of the questions as possible. So we have got roughly another 15 or 20 minutes. So let's see what we can do with this. Robert, anything that sort of caught your attention?
Yeah, can I have the honor of passing the question to someone?
Sure, please.
Yes,
please.
okay.
Yes.
Right, there's a question here. I'm not sure if it's similar to the question earlier. He said, can we use the DMX controller with a lighting software to control fixture lights?
So this would be Daniel, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard 2 times light, so this should be me. So at the end, yes, of course, it always depends on the parameter count, on having parameters for your on PC software to control. So in most of the cases, you can add some hardware elements to your on PC software to have a kind of control device and a device which allows you to control the parameters directly. As I mentioned earlier, some manufacturers have some dongle equipment as well. So to put in a dongle to your on PC software, then control parameters via Ethernet, so via network protocols. So it depends. In general, of course, it's possible, but you always need some kind of hardware which enables you parameters.
Thank you, Daniel. Do you spot anything else? Just quick, this is actually for me in a way. Can we have a copy of this lecture for the review purposes? All right. So we will be, this is being recorded, and we will send the link to all those who had registered so that it's on video on demand. You can always click on it and have a look at it. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to something. Robert, I'm not sure whether you would like to answer this one. It says about using analog mixer and that they're experiencing feedback from electric guitar connected to pedal effects to guitar amplifier. Wow, there's a lot of connection there. How can we get rid of the feedback?
Okay, I think it's really, it's really nothing to do with whether it's an analog mixer or digital mixer. I think you still have the same problem with both. If you're referring to a guitar amplifier that's being mic'd up, then probably that mic is picking up something else as well that's going into a loop. And then there could be another kind of feedback. I'm not so sure if you're referring to an acoustic feedback through the mic, or is it a feedback through the guitar itself? I'm not sure how many of you encountered this. You can put a guitar on stage with the volume up, no one's playing it, and then suddenly it goes into a feedback, and the strings are just vibrating, and then it goes into a hum. All right. And that's because there's an interaction between the guitar and the amplifier itself. So I'm not sure which feedback you're referring to, but whatever it is, you need to find a way to cut that loop, right? Cut that path between either the microphone and whatever it's interacting with. It could be a stage monitor, it could be the guitar amplifier itself, or you got to cut the loop between the guitar and the amplifier. I learned this lesson a long time ago. I think it was back in the 90s. I remember I was working in church, and the pastor was preaching. I want to tell the story now. The pastor was preaching his sermon halfway, and then there was a loud hum on stage. And I was a rookie engineer at the time. So I said, all my mics are muted, and the pastor's mic is not feeding back. So what's causing the feedback? and I realized that it was a bass guitar that's leaning on the bass amplifier, and that was causing this loop. All right, and I had to walk down physically from my front of house mix to the stage just to turn off the bass volume, and I walked back. So I was kind of like the rock star of that Sunday service. So yeah, so I do not know what's causing it, but maybe you can kind of find out if there's some kind of a loop between the amplifier or some stage monitors nearby. That could be a possible answer. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks. This question that has come up, I think maybe Stephen, you may be able to answer this, or if any of the panelists feel like answering it, please feel free to do so. It asks, what good broadcast software should be used if streaming requires multiple outputs, such as program out and multi-views? I'm not sure, maybe Michael or Stephen can answer this. Anyone volunteering? Stephen?
Sorry, I don't quite get the question.
Okay.
I was trying to type and answer some other question.
Okay, sure. Let me
Can
ask
you-
this again.
Yeah.
What good broadcast software should be used if streaming requires multiple outputs, such as program out and multi-views?
I
I'm
see,
not
I see.
sure. I mean, that's a question. I'm not sure if it makes sense, or if Michael, if you want to jump into,
Yeah.
you can.
I mean, on the software, the difficulty is how many outputs and program out and multi-viewer do you want? I mean, you have software that can do some few inputs, but as soon as you reach, and same thing, you don't have the resolution here. So we need more details on the question.
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as you reach certain resolution and a certain number of inputs, you will need to go on the hardware. Software will not be enough even with big computers.
That's right. Yeah. Stephen, anything to add on, or that's all right?
Yeah, that's all right. Actually, maybe the question, I think if it's like a software only, right? It's going to be tough. Software usually just like one out, that's all. You try to maximize everything in one. Multiple outputs, right, would be a little bit. I'm not sure whether like you when say multiple outputs, it means that you want to go to different websites, is it? Sorry, or it's like going to different screens, and is it for live streaming or is it to your venue? So now I'll just answer. If you use software, if your question is I just need software, I don't want to buy boxes and hardwares, right? Then OBS Studio again can possibly do a free, a kind of like a simple job. Okay, whether you can have your computer laptop that has, let's say, up to 3 outputs, or what, one is your own screen, then the other HDMI out to the second screen, and maybe you plug in another USB to HDMI as a third screen, then you may have maxed out all your screens already, right? So you have basically 2 physical outs to the outside. And so OBS, you can set up so that you can capture that 2 screens separately. And then that 2 screens, then you can so-called like route that image out to that 2. Okay, again, I'm not sure whether you are using this for like, you want to send, for example, a main screen to the main screen for everyone to watch. And then a second screen for, like, let's say a confidence screen for your performers to see the lyrics or the other slides. Okay, if you're thinking of that live, then it is OBS, but you got to tweak the settings, right? That's why better to get a hardware switcher that has a dedicated physical outs that you can punch in the signal directly. Yeah, I would recommend use a hardware. Yeah, okay. Thanks,
Stephen. Okay, we have a question, and I'm opening to anyone in the panel. Our office, as opposed to church, has only 3 Mbps. Oops. At the last time we measured for streaming bit rate. What if we stream 1080p? HD, of course. When we have only 3 Mbps, will it cause lagging? Stephen, maybe it's yours as well. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Let me.
So the question is, they have 3 Mbps for streaming bitrate. They are wondering if they stream at 1080p with a 3 Mbps, will it cause any lag?
Yes, it will. Okay. There are a few parameters we need to clarify, right? When you stream out from your venue, whether it's office or home, right? You must look for the upload speed. Okay, not the download speed, because upload speed. So you try go to this website called testmy.net. It's testmy.net. Okay, so that sites we find our IT guys recommends as well. It's more accurate, more reliable. It has a graph compared to other speed test so-called like sites. Okay. The general recommendation rule, right, is you got to stream, let's say 3 megabits per second. Your upload speed ideally would have 2 to 3 times that speed. Okay, 3 will be safe because we are dealing with fluctuation as well. So meaning you will need 3 times 3, you need 9 megabits per second. When you do a speed test, ideally you will have a regular, you look at the lowest graph. Don't look at the highest number because the highest number should pass. You clock over that period and then you look at the graph goes down, look at the lowest must hit ideally 2 to 3 times your streaming bandwidth. So because you don't want your signal to break in between, and the breakage, it will be all those dips, right? The intermittent is where the dip is. So when you do speed test, the speed test only give you the highest or the average, but that's not the data you need. You need to know the lowest. So testmy.net gives you that lower points as well. It gets the highest, medium, and the lower point. So look for the low point. It must pass your 3 times your standing bandwidth. That's the general rule. Now, best also test during your streaming day and time. So let's say you're streaming on Sunday morning, 10 a.m. You should do the test during those times because that will be realistic to your location. If you're doing at night, Thursday night, for example, then do it on Thursday night when you're doing your testings, right? Because some days when you do it, it's like very high, but on your streaming day, you didn't test it that time, right? Then you will get a shock. Yeah. So get a wired connection as well. That's a rather than a Wi-Fi, it will maintain the stability. Yeah, I hope it helps.
Thanks. Good advice, actually, Stephen. Thanks. All right. Robert, I'm going to throw this at you. It says, sorry, my question just jumped. Just give me a moment. Let me capture that again. Okay. What is one of the best but affordable sound card audio interface we can use for recording our church worship services? The thing is, since it's pandemic time, we only held a worship service with limited audience. So what we did was we recorded the service, video and audio, and have it edited before uploading to social media for others to be able to watch it and reach out on them. Thank you. Do you get that, Robert?
Yes. Okay. I'm not sure if he's referring to a sound card like on a PC.
It says sound card
Yeah,
interface.
it sounds. Yeah, it's been a long time since I used a sound card. So I'm going to answer it as though it's referring to an external interface, which I think most of us are more familiar with nowadays, unless you're doing multi-track recording, which has got a different sound cards out there or audio interfaces out there. Okay, this question is very subjective because affordable, it can be affordable to me, but it could be not affordable to someone else. So I'm not sure what price range you were talking about. But at the end of the day, if you're just looking for a 2-channel audio interface, we are very happy to say that there are so many options out there that are really affordable, so to speak. Let's say we're talking about anything between $200 or $300 that gives you very, very good, decent results for running audio in and out of the recording. And also, another thing I can think of is, I'm not sure if you are recording multi-track as well. If you're recording multi-track, there are a lot of digital mixers out there that also allows you to do that nowadays. So you can record your church service, whether it's a pre-recorded one, you could be doing it on a Thursday night, you're recording your worship and you dump everything onto your digital mixer multi-track. And then after that, you can upload it onto either a PC software, or you can even do it on your digital mixer itself. So, and most of this, they are free. Right, and so you can record either on your PC software directly, or you can record it on your digital mixer. So there are a lot of options now. In fact, the demo that I'm going to do for my next session, I'm going to demo it running it through directly onto a digital mixer itself, because digital mixer I'm going to use is able to play back multi-tracks because it can record and it can play back. So there are many options now. So if you really have such a digital mixer, then you can even do it straight on directly, 24 tracks or 32 tracks and so forth. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Robert. Sorry, Mike. Let me see. Okay. I think this will be for Daniel. Can we use the DMX controller with a lighting software to control fixture lights?
I think we just asked that just now.
Did I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did?
I think this was the first question.
Oh my gosh. I apologize. I apologize that it obviously caught my attention. Okay.
All good, all good.
Okay, let me see. Okay, this question. Okay, let me see. Did I ask this? What are some pointers to manage Maury effect and other refresh rates issues when recording with the LED screen as a backdrop when doing live streaming? Stephen, maybe, or
Yeah, I can take this.
Okay.
It's a French word lah, moa.
Yeah.
It's pronounced as moa.
Okay.
The effect comes from the small LED pixels, right? And if they are opposite running, right, you will get this kind of like a zebra lines. You will see it on a shirt with fine lines, right? On your camera, when you take even photograph, right, you will see that like how come there's like a weird pattern on that lines. So those are the moa effects. Typically, when you have a video camera with different refresh rate, let's say 50 hertz, and then your LED wall has a different refresh rate, let's say 60 hertz, then this different refresh rate, right, will have that kind of like a, moa effect. So you see kind of like a weird round patterns kind of thing. You can just Google for it. So the solution would be a few folds. When you focus your subject, don't focus to the screen, but focus onto the subject. You need to make it shallow depth of field so that the background will blur, assuming he's standing in front of the LED wall and he's between your LED wall and your camera, right? So rule one would be bring your subject further away from the LED wall. So then you have further separation. So then next, your camera use a large aperture, meaning your aperture is as big as possible. Then your depth of field will become shallower. Means the subject will be in focus, but the background will be blurrer. That would be ideal. The blurrer your background is, then this moa effect will not be so obvious. You cannot get rid of it totally, but it's not so obvious. Next one is that you may need to change your zoom angle a little bit. Sometimes at your camera zoom, right, if you just start to zoom in a little bit, the pattern changes become not so pronounced. So, but as you go in, it will become pronounced again. And as you keep zooming at different, like a range of your zoom, the moa effect will kind of like change. So find one that is not so adversely affecting it. So then work within that range. Yeah. Some broadcast studios, right? They have all this TV and LED wall, right? You see like newsrooms. They may have one film that is pasted over it. And that is kind of like the film reduce this kind of effect. So the light of the LED still pass through as it is, but it is this additional large film. So you pretend it's like your handphone screen, screen protector thingy, but this is like a gigantic, I mean, as big as your LED wall. So it is pasted over it to reduce this kind of effect. Yeah, these are specialized stuff and which will be costly. And let me see. Setting on your camera. Now, the high-end cameras, the broadcast camera inside has a frequency that you can set, and it can be very accurate. It's not just like 50 hertz. It's like 49 point something. They have actually a knob to tune until the thing disappears. The problem disappears. So well, that will be the many. It's like a high-end gears lah. Our normal consumer gears will not have this set aside. So the things are locked in. So you can't really kind of like adjust this kind of stuff. Yeah, I think these are the few practical ways. So get it out of focus, basically. Change your angle a little bit, change your zoom size a little bit. Get your subject to stand further away from the screen. Yeah, yeah, hope it helps.
Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for correcting my pronunciation as well. All right. Okay, now let me get back to Daniel. There seems to be a question, and I'm sure I didn't ask this. I see the MA3 has integrated visualizer. Can we combine the light effect from the visualizer to our stream?
Yeah, I mean, in general, this is possible. So what we can think of are two different solutions here. So on the one hand, we could use the visualizer, which is also integrated to our on-PC software. That means on the one hand, you combine the on-PC maybe to your console or to your system in general, and then you can open up the 3D window there, and you have the integrated visualizer directly on your computer as as a kind of video signal, right? You can integrate to your stream. And on the other hand, there is the possibility of using NDI. I think I've read the question as well in the question module about NDI, if we would recommend this to use it for hybrid worships as well now, or if we need a little bit more time. I think it is worth to set on NDI now, because it's definitely one of the things which which will happen in the future. We see it more and more in the lighting and video industry, especially. But what we do with our visualizer signal, and that's what we do with our distributors together. We have regularly some online distributor conferences where we talk to them about new developments in the software and so on, especially during the COVID situation. This helped us a lot, and therefore we stream our software screens as well using NDI, for example. So this is also one thing which will be more and more present, especially in the lighting control systems.
Thanks, Dan. And also thanks for killing two birds with one stone. So you have answered, in a way, the question that was asked about the NDI as well.
Hopefully, yes.
All right. Okay, time is kind of catching up on us. So I'm going to ask this question, and I think probably Robert may be able to answer this. How do you avoid audio and video not being synchronized? And if you do have the problem that AV is not synchronized, what is the best way to find out where this is happening? Is audio video not being synced usually caused by a mismatch of frames per second? Robert?
Okay, it really depends on how the audio and video signal are being managed, whether they're separate or are they going through the same device throughout the whole signal chain. If you were to route something through a video system, more often than not, you might get a lag in the audio, depending on how the video equipment handles the audio. Now, whatever the case is, whether it's the camera that did it or the switcher or the converters or whatever, if something happens along the way, you still have to find a way to deal with it. So you can deal with it at the front end. You can delay the audio right from the mixer itself, the audio mixer. So if you're using a digital audio mixer, most of them are equipped with a delay feature on any of the outputs. So you can delay it by however number of milliseconds, depending on how bad the latency is. Or if you're going through a streaming device, let's say an OBS. OBS has that feature as well that allows you to delay the audio. So how much audio, sometimes you can do calculations, sometimes it's all trial and error, where you got to watch the stream and to see how bad the lag is, and then you just adjust the delay or the audio delay accordingly until the video is synced with the audio. So like I said, there could be many reasons where the audio is affected. Sorry, in the sense that the video is lagging way behind the audio. For reasons where video it takes a longer time to process, and audio is much easier to churn. So so you just have to deal with the audio latency, and you can adjust accordingly. Right? It could be 10 milliseconds, it could be 100 milliseconds, depending on how many levels of stages you went through, and there's how much delay is being introduced. So you can adjust this delay through any of these devices. Yeah.
Thank you, Robert. Thanks. I think that's about all the time we have. I do see some questions again about bandwidth, and I think Stephen did answer that already. So I'd like to inform all of you that we will be sending you a link for you to, on video on demand, really, for you to listen again to this whole presentation, the questions and the answers. So we'll be sending it out soon. All right. Once again, thank you all very much for being part of this evening. I have to thank our sponsors, of course, Analog Way, both professional and MA Lighting. I also like to thank our panelists for all their hard work here. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Daniel. Thank you very much. Now, we will be having our next webinar coming up, and I'm sure you have heard Robert allude to it a number of times, and we hope to do it sometime in late November. Robert, do you want to give a very quick brief about that particular session that we are going to be doing?
Okay. I think in the first two sessions, we have talked a lot about to get a good stream audio, especially on the worship segment. It is great if you can have an independent mix, a broadcast mix. So this session talks about how you mix for especially in the worship segment, right? We talk about balance, we talk about tone, we talk about effects, we talk about compression, how do you handle levels and so forth, and also how to create a realistic listening experience. Because most of the time people are commenting that when they listen to the worship at home and they try to participate in it, it feels dry, it sounds dry, it doesn't feel like you are in that environment. It feels, sometimes even people use the word dead, which is, I think, is a terrible term to describe a church worship. So so this session, I hope to demonstrate some of the final points on how you do your mix for the band, the vocals, and so forth, and try to create as realistic as an environment for worship as possible. So do join me in that session, right?
Thank you so much, Robert. Thank you all very much. Thank you, panelists, again. And we hope to see you all soon. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you.
Good evening.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
And thank you. Good evening.
Thank you. Bye.